Last Tuesday, one supplier price changed. Nothing on the menu changed with it. The dish name stayed the same, the portion looked the same, the prep list printed exactly as it had printed the week before. But the number underneath the dish had already moved, and not just for one dish. The same ingredient was inside a sauce, a pie, a staff meal, and the garnish that nobody thinks to cost separately. That is the quiet failure in a lot of kitchens. The menu is current, the recipe is familiar, and the sheet underneath is yesterday's sheet. Today I want to show you the chain reaction and the small check that catches it before service. Start with the object that causes the problem, a supplier pack. Most kitchen updates arrive as something ordinary, a new invoice, a different case price, a pack size that has changed, a substitute item that looks close enough to use. The service does not stop because the pack changed. The chef still has to prep, the tickets still arrive, and the menu still promises the same plate. The change becomes visible only when somebody asks a better question than, "What did we buy?" They have to ask, which recipes use it and what else moved with it. The pack price is only the first number. The recipe uses a quantity. The kitchen pays for a pack. The usable amount can change after trim, reduction, cooking, or portioning. So the working number is not the price on the invoice, and it is not the price on the menu. It is the cost of the usable amount that actually reaches the plate. That is why a tidy spreadsheet can still be wrong. If the pack size, unit, or yield is out of date, the formulas can be perfectly correct and still answer the wrong question. Yield is where the quiet errors hide. A sauce can start as one quantity and finish as another. A tray of potatoes can lose weight before it becomes portions. A trim bin can look small until it is repeated every day. Nobody needs a dramatic mistake for the sheet to drift. A small yield assumption repeated across a week is enough. The point is not to create a perfect laboratory measurement for every prep. The point is to keep the assumption visible so somebody can challenge it when the kitchen changes. The most dangerous ingredient is not always the most expensive one. It is often the one that appears in several places without looking like the same thing. A base sauce becomes a pie filling. A cooked chicken prep becomes a curry, a sandwich, and a staff meal. A garnish becomes a handful on every plate, which means the garnish becomes a batch by the end of the week. If one linked prep changes, the menu has a small family tree to update. This is where a single dish calculator stops being enough. The operator needs to see the links. Menus are written for guests. Price books are written for the kitchen. They do not use the same language. The menu says house curry. The supplier document says a pack code. The prep list says curry base. The recipe might say finished sauce. Those can all be the same chain, but the names do not make it obvious. When the names do not connect, the operator has to remember the connections. Memory is the first thing service removes. The useful check before service is short. What changed? Which linked preparations use it? What is the new portion cost? Does the portion or menu need a decision? Which printed sheets are now stale? That is not a dashboard tour. It is a checklist. If the answer takes 5 screens to find, the tool is making the kitchen do the work twice. A useful price book does not need to replace the till, the stock take, the invoice folder, and every spreadsheet in the business. It needs one reliable chain: ingredient, recipe, portion, printed prep sheet. When an ingredient changes, the operator should see the affected dishes and the action required. That is the entire first version. No promise of automatic supplier feeds. No promise that software can taste the sauce. No magic button that understands a kitchen it has never seen. Just a clear answer to the update that arrives before service. Here is the test I would run with a kitchen. Take one real recipe. Add the ingredient pack and the usable quantity. Link the recipe to the dishes that use it. Then change one supplier price. The tool should tell you 3 things without another calculation. First, which dishes moved. Second, how much the portion number changed. Third, which sheet or menu decision needs a human review. If it cannot do those 3 things, it is still a calculator. If it can, it has started to become a working price book. Let us make that test concrete, because the useful part is not the word price book. It is the chain you can check with your hands on a normal morning. Imagine a 2 kilogram pack arrives with a new price. The recipe does not use 2 kilograms. It uses a measured quantity, and the usable amount may be lower after trimming or cooking. If the pack costs £21 and the usable yield is 2.1 kilograms, the working ingredient cost is £10 per usable kilogram. A 160-gram portion starts at £1.60 before the other ingredients are added. That example is deliberately simple. The point is to make each assumption visible. If the usable yield is actually 1.8 kilograms, the portion number moves again. If the recipe records grams, but the supplier sheet records cases, the formula may still calculate, while the answer quietly becomes nonsense. The first screen should therefore show the source number, the unit, and the yield beside one another. The second should show the recipe quantity. The third should show the dishes that inherit the prep. The operator should not have to remember which screen contained the assumption. There are 4 failure points worth checking every time. First, the pack size may be wrong. Second, the unit conversion may be wrong. Third, the yield may describe an old method. Fourth, a printed sheet may still contain last week's number even after the recipe has been corrected. That is why the final step is not another chart. It is a review queue. Changed ingredient, affected recipe, new portion figure, stale sheet, human decision. Some changes should alter a menu price, some should alter a portion, some should simply be recorded. The software can surface the consequence, but the kitchen still owns the decision. Run that sequence once with a real ingredient, and the value becomes obvious. You are not asking a chef to maintain a second database for its own sake. You are shortening the distance between the invoice, the recipe, and the sheet that somebody actually uses during service. There is also a useful discipline in leaving the old number visible for a moment. Show the previous figure beside the new one, label the reason for the change, and record whether the decision was to change the portion, change the menu, or accept the movement for now. That small history matters when the next person opens the sheet on a busy day. It turns a surprise into a traceable decision. The review can be done at a prep table, on a laptop, or from a printed checklist. The format matters less than the order. Source first, recipe second, affected dishes third, action last. If the order is reversed, teams end up debating the answer before they agree on the number. That order also makes the workflow teachable. A new member of the team can follow the same 4 questions without knowing every supplier relationship in advance. An experienced chef can challenge the yield or portion assumption without rebuilding the whole sheet. And when the answer is printed, the next shift can see what changed, instead of treating the new figure as unexplained truth. It is worth saying what this workflow does not try to do. It does not pretend that a supplier feed knows whether yesterday's trim was unusually heavy. It does not decide that a menu price should rise because one ingredient moved. It does not replace a chef tasting a sauce, checking a portion, or deciding whether a change is worth passing to the customer. Those are decisions with context. The useful job is narrower and more practical. Preserve the starting number, expose the assumptions, find the linked recipes, and put the human decision in front of the right person. That is enough to turn a hidden drift into a visible conversation before service. It also gives the kitchen a record it can revisit when the same ingredient changes again next month. This is for the independent kitchen that has enough moving parts to feel the problem, but not enough time to install an enterprise system. A pub kitchen, a caterer, a meal prep business, a bakery with recipes that share fillings and components, a small team where one person knows the connections and everybody else needs to see them. The first version should be quick to import, quick to correct, and easy to print. The kitchen does not need another place to admire its data. It needs fewer stale sheets at the pass. If you want to run one recipe through the free PrepSheet calculator, the link is below. It is the fastest way to check a portion and see the chain of numbers for yourself. We are also testing a small operator beta for the Pricebook workflow. It is deliberately assisted. You bring one real recipe and one real supplier update, and we see whether the affected dishes report saves enough time to become part of the weekly routine. One ingredient changed. The useful question is not, did the sheet recalculate? It is, what do I need to change before service?